President Trump doubling down on his decision to fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after Friday's weak jobs report showed a massive downward revision for May and for June. President's calling it a scam, blasting Erica McIntyre for what he calls the biggest miscalculations in over 50 years. Watch.
We'll be announcing a new statistician sometime over the next 3-4 days. We had no confidence. I mean, the numbers were ridiculous. If you remember, just before the election, this woman came out with these phenomenal numbers on Biden's economy. Phenomenal numbers. And then right after the election, they announced that those numbers were wrong. And that's what they did the other day. So it's a scam, in my opinion.
Democrat Blumenthal, meanwhile, calling for Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer to resign, saying she's the one at fault. Watch this.
I think the Secretary of Labor ought to. I think this is a resigning issue. For the president to interfere with the basic function of the Commissioner of Labor Statistics to assure flow of information, I think, is a resigning matter for Lori Chavez-DeRemer.
By phone, the woman herself, Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer. Madam Secretary, thank you. I want to get your reactions to those comments from Senator Blumenthal.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl, for having me. Well, it's nonsense. I think Senator Blumenthal knows very well that the Labor Commissioner is independent of the Secretary of Labor, and the President absolutely has the right to determine who is going to be advising him, and I support the President's decision in this replacement. This is an important time in America's history, but the one thing we count on is accurate information. This is information that when we see revisions, as we saw this last week, of course the President is going to take that into account when we've seen a pattern of revisions happening over the last few years that have been detrimental to and can be to the markets. So Senator Blumenthal is incorrect in saying so. I have to support the President in this issue, and I do support him. We have to ensure for the American people that we can trust this data. It's influential. It changes markets. It changes investments. And the transparency that the President is asking for is important to the American economy.
Well, and these numbers, to your point, incredibly important to the market. We cover them extensively on this program, Madam Secretary, and I want to get your response to this. Alicia Finley in the Wall Street Journal this morning writes, Trump claims the jobs report was rigged, but was it? What she goes into is the problems at BLS, and this is what I want to get your take on. She says the truth is the job numbers have become more volatile to survey response rates. She also says that the Bureau, these surveys, the phone, the web, even the fax, these businesses just aren't responding to these. And then the editorial board wrote the Bureau of Labor denial, and they unfortunately took a hit at you, Madam Secretary, because initially you said that there was positive job growth Friday morning, and then later on it was, I agree with the dismissal and the political purposes of this data. Where do you stand this morning on this, Madam Secretary?
We're still seeing a net positive. Over 500,000 jobs have been created. And we understand that these surveys come in from businesses, from the American worker themselves. It's the revisions that is the question, the transparency of those revisions. We have no accurate information if we see numbers that are declining over the last 50 years. The biggest revision that has happened in the last 50 years gives us pause. And then the President and his team went back and took a look and said, this has happened over the last few years. Of course, the question would be, what is happening? How are we understanding those numbers? And when the American people are going to make determinations, investors, businesses are going to make determinations for the markets, it's going to be important that that is accurate information. It is not a political office. This is supposed to be independent of politics. And the President has taken a look at this, and I support his decision when we're seeing the biggest revisions in 50 years. That is the evidence that we are seeing. So, the acting secretary, the acting commissioner will come in until he finds a replacement for that office. And I just don't understand why it has to be a political issue. But the President will take a hard look at this, and it's important that we get accurate information to the people.
So you do plan to find out if her actions were indeed political when it came to the release of the jobs report?
Incumbent upon the president and his team. It is my responsibility as labor secretary, independent of BLS, is to be in coordination in working with these numbers as we want to grow the economy. My job specifically is to increase the workforce, increase the American workers, and that's what we've been doing under this president. I mean, I have been on this 50-state tour, and this has taken a highlight because it caused us pause on Friday. We had seen increasing numbers, and we see 2-month revision that is going to wipe out the growth that we're seeing. It didn't make sense, and it didn't make sense to the president. So I support him in this decision to fire the labor commissioner.
All right. Kevin Hassett, National Economic Director, he joined Shannon Bream on Fox News Sunday yesterday. Take on those revisions that we're discussing. Listen to this.
We've got 3% GDP growth, and yes, this week, a disappointing jobs number. When I first saw the big revisions, which, by the way, were the largest revisions going all the way back for 50 years, if we exclude the COVID years, when I saw those revisions, I thought it must be a typo. That I've never seen a revision like this, and if the data aren't that good, then it's a real problem for the U.S. And right now, the data have become very unreliable with these massive revisions over the last few years.
Madam Secretary, as you move forward with all of this reworking of BLS, do you think that it is now time to do a complete overhaul and get that funding? He also mentioned the funding that should be given to the BLS to make sure that this data is correct, because it is so crucial to the markets and to the U.S.
Yeah, I think Kevin Hassett is correct in saying that, this is we can modernize, we can streamline, we can make the investments so we have the accurate data. Businesses are relying on it. The American workers relying on it. The transparency there should be not. These are numbers. We don't have to be political in numbers. We just have to have the accurate data input to have the outcomes that people can rely on. And so he is correct that maybe there needs to be an overhaul, and I'm sure that the National Economic Council is going to take a hard look at that in consultation with the White House to understand, is this the accuracy that the people are counting on, and then people can make decisions. For me, the American economy, we're growing these numbers, 500,000 jobs. Yes, we expected a higher number, but when we saw those revisions, it did give us pause to take a look at, is there a better way? Why shouldn't we ask those questions? Is there a better way to get the information so we can make better decisions? For instance, the Fed rate. The Fed rate didn't drop because these numbers were high. If that wasn't the accurate case, would there have been a different decision there? And you can see the president leaning in to Jerome Powell to say, lower this interest rate. I think that's taken another hard look at that. If we don't have the accurate data, we don't make good decisions. And any business owner, any worker is going to ask those questions. I would ask those questions as a business owner. If I was the labor commissioner, you would say, what went wrong here, and can we get more information in order to be more transparent to the American people?
Well, and Federal Reserve is going to be stepping down from her role Friday, so there's now a vacancy as the Fed has kept, again, rates unchanged, to your point, for a 5th time. But this does open the door for President Trump to nominate someone more aligned with this push for rate cuts, and he House should resign. But pivoting back to BLS really quick here, and I want to get your take on the Fed. Also, do you foresee more dismissals? That's something that you have talked to your team about?
I haven't talked to my team. Again, that's independent of the Department of Labor, BLS. I mean, that was what was important in not only every secretary who comes forward, is that this is an independent, while it falls under the Department of Labor auspice, it's an independent agency directed by the president, who he's going to appoint. This is a Biden administration political appointee who is there. Yes, she had the bipartisan support. It's the numbers that we're questioning. It's the accuracy. It's the modernization. Could there have been a harder look? Should we have had more information and more decision-making factors as to where these numbers came from? That's the question. So if there is going to be another look at who's staying and who's going, I haven't had that conversation with anybody on my team or at the White House.
Do you feel that, just a general question, that, you said that you've been traveling, you've been, 50 states. Do you feel that you're getting an optimistic commentary from workers that you're meeting with, businesses that you're working with? And is there, do you think, momentum for more job growth moving forward in the country?
Absolutely. I just flew into Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my 21st state on my 50-state tour. What we are hearing on the ground is positivity. It's excitement. they understand that the president has done a wonderful job at the negotiations in their favor, leveling the playing field, understanding that he is having these companies reinvest in the United States. Over $10 trillion has been reinvested and committed to the United States of America to grow the economy. So on the ground, while I was just in South Carolina just the last few days, these companies are asking, what else can we do? We're growing the workforce. And what is my job? To have the skilled workforce, upskill, reskill, retraining, and working with our respective state partners to do that. 1 million apprentices is what the president is asking for. We're going to hit that mark because people have decided that building in America, growing the American economy, being dominant in the workforce is what's key. The one big beautiful bill, Congress stepped up and they got it done. What is that going to do? No tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, no tax on tips. That's important for the American worker to keep more of their hard-earned dollars, and that is why we're seeing the excitement on the ground. Everywhere I go, the praise for the change, for the investment in the American economy, you can see it, people feel it, and now businesses are looking for that rate cut so that they can borrow more money at a cheaper rate to continue to reinvest in their facilities, in manufacturing, and in their employees. And I think that that's the excitement that people are seeing. That blue-collar boom is happening, and it's been at the leadership of the president.
Secretary Lori, thank you so much for being with us this morning and responding to our questions. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Cheryl.